All right, thank you so much for joining me. I'm excited to be able to share these free resources with you today and tools that you are able to use to engage your nursing assistant students. My name is Laura Williams, and I am a registered nurse. Just to give you a little synopsis of who I am and how I got started in the field. I started my career as a certified nursing assistant, actually at the age of 16. I originally am from Louisiana, so down south. I'm based out of Texas now, and I'm officially a Texan for sure. And I enrolled in a nurse aid program in 2000. It seems crazy that it's been that long. My career in nursing definitely has grown, and that was actually the jump start of it. I actually started out just wanting to have skills to be able to take care of my grandparents. That's it. That's all I wanted to do. I didn't have a career in mind. I wasn't thinking forward, but it turned out that I fell in love with serving the elderly and the geriatric population. Outside of that, I've been a director of nursing, led assisted livings, memory care units, and what we call our company called a Clare Bridge for residents diagnosed with Alzheimer's and dementia. And I just began to see how much I love teaching, but not only that, using different creative ways to engage the associates. Because I know, and every nurse knows, that if your team understands why you're wanting them to follow certain policies and procedures, then we can empower them to be able to serve, right? It takes a little bit of that burden off of ourselves. So I was able to, and had been recognized for the quality measures and metrics that we were able to decrease falls and decrease narcotic usage because of me using creative ways to engage our team. So there's a little bit about me. I'm also a writer and a philanthropist, so I do a lot of traveling, periodically speaking. So everything in my world is about empowering others, teaching, training. You kind of see it in many aspects. So I would love to hear a little bit about you that are on the training today. Tell me a little bit about your background and why you decided to join this free call also. And you will have to take yourself off mute because you are on mute. Melissa, since I started my day, my evening off, do you want to start off and tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yes, again, wonderful meeting you. Thank you. I just shared with Ms. Williams that I am homesick, but nonetheless, though I am ill, I just wanted to embark on an opportunity to learn more information, gain more knowledge, to fuel myself, motivate myself to move forward in starting my personal project. A little bit of my background: I started off in the Air Force as a medic. Then from there, I did one term, traveled a lot, saw a lot at the tender age of 18. And then decided to pursue my dreams, went into practical nursing, and then made a shift, career change into real estate.
Oh, wow.
For quite some time. Yes, and missed, direct patient care contact, and then became an instructor. Still teaching as an instructor part-time, absolutely love it.
Yeah.
And that has fueled my desire for the past actually 4 years and wanting to move forward with this opportunity. So like I explained earlier, because I am homesick and, have some downtime, why not, learn what I can do to move forward.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I hope that you're feeling better. You sound good. Thank you so much. And thank you for your service too. That sounds like a very interesting background with the Air Force. And then, yeah, that's pretty cool.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, definitely. Ms. V, you want to share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Great. So I'm Savitria Palmer. Most people call me V. Please feel free to call me V. I am registered nurse of 30 years.
Wow.
Ooh, where do I start? So currently I'm working as needed as a visiting professor for Chamberlain College of Nursing.
Okay.
Um, I have a master's degree, nursing education, working on a doctorate in education with a specialization in nursing education.
Mm,
I am laying the groundwork for allied health school.
okay.
I have been approved by the Board of Nursing for the District of Columbia, but
Wow.
the second hurdle is the huge gargantuan application with higher learning. You have to be licensed in DC in order to open any type of school. So
Mm,
that is what I am enthralled in at the current moment. I am trying to incorporate an online portion
okay.
into my curriculum. And so hence, that's why I'm here tonight to um, learn from you.
Awesome. Awesome. That is exciting. Wow.
Yeah,
Such rich knowledge on the training today. And
yeah.
also, I see that Mrs. Vicky has joined. She's definitely a great resource. Vicky, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm sorry I joined in late. I just had a problem signing in. I was not familiar with it, so I apologize for my tardiness.
Oh,
Thank
you're
you.
okay.
And I was listening to the individual speaking, and I'm sorry I didn't get to hear your name. So can I hear who the other person is? I was just finished speaking. What is her name?
Oh, V.
V. Hi, V. Nice to meet you.
V and
Hi,
Melissa.
how are you?
Great. Greetings from Phoenix, Arizona. I'm Vicki Castillo, and I am also a registered nurse, and I am the owner and founder of Facets Healthcare Training. And we are a CNA test prep, and I've been in the CNA world for about 13 years now, and I've held many roles in CNA. And I'm excited to see the content that Laura is going to be sharing with us. And when I saw the topics, I thought, oh, I got to sign up for that. So I'm really excited.
Yes, thank you so much for joining Vicky. And Vicky's business is really good because she provides skilled videos. And Vicky, I mean, I'm not giving it much justice, but what I like about it is very state specific. So if you want your students to be equipped on what your state requires, she has the experience, and she has a great resource and website that I'm actually going to be using for my school in Texas. Thank you, ladies, for joining. I'm excited. It's always good to connect with nurses and hear, you know, how our journey in the field has been and how we have developed ourselves and fall in love with certain things. And every one of you has that teaching part. And I think that's a part of nursing, right? Everything we do is about passing on knowledge. So being an instructor for me, I started off and actually kind of stumbled on the opportunity to instruct in our community college here in Texas. One of my friends from Africa texted me and said, hey, there's this opportunity here at ACC. What do you think about it? And I was like, okay, I'm one of those individuals. I'll at least try it once. So I won't miss out on something in my mind. And I fell in love with it. Like most of you said, it's easy, right? There's no staffing, you know, no emergency situation. You can just focus on passing on that knowledge and hopefully cultivating CNAs that really will take care of residents or whoever they're caring for, because now our industry is so broad. And that is something that is near dear to my heart. So as you get to know me and see me post, I'm all about raising the standard of excellence and how we provide care for seniors. And I know a good part of that is teaching, training, educating our the people that are at the foundation of it all. So thank you again for joining. So this is our agenda today. Some of you, if not all of you, should have gotten, I created just a little workbook for this session. And then the other two, I do encourage you, if you are able to join me, because the content will build. I didn't want to do it so much. I didn't want to do all of it on one call because I don't think you'll retain that information, and I want you to enjoy it and not feel like we're in a nursing class again. But these are some of the things that we're going to talk about. Some learning styles, just a review. We all know them, but I always like to start there. And also Google Classroom shortcuts. I'm actually going to go there live to some classrooms that I have already set up from previous students that I just finished off with, so I can show you how to navigate it if you're looking at going online, or even if you're gonna be doing your school in person, hopefully sooner, right, as things are clearing up, but then we have some other things that are rising up in the midst of this time. Google Classroom to me is just a really good resource that you can do some grading, assignments, and just kind of alleviate the papers, right? I'm a paper pen, I have so many journals, but this is a really good, similar to a nice LMS system that's good to use, user-friendly, and you don't feel like you have to learn a whole lot. So I definitely want you to see the benefits of using Google Classroom. And then I'll talk about some interactive games. So I'm gonna go simple on this call, and then next week we're gonna talk about PowerPoints that you can use, add content, and actually your students can be able to answer them live. So there's other resources that you can use that has a little more tech part of it. But today I wanted to go real simple, and I actually did it with 3 classes, and I'm going to actually show you comments and feedback from those students, even when I'm just creating something on a PowerPoint presentation, and how it increased their knowledge and understanding. And then we're going to start off with just the foundation of how I create effective case studies. So in my intro, I mentioned that I'm an author, and I've published 4 books. I love to write. So creating a story is not very difficult for me. And especially if you add some medical nursing stuff to it, it gets really exciting. So I'm gonna actually kind of go into a little introduction just to show you how I build, and also recommend that you don't feel like you have to create so many of them. We're gonna kind of talk about how you can just build out a character throughout the content of the Hartman's book, or any book that you're using to teach your CNAs from. All right, so we're actually going to be a little interactive. I want you to use your Zoom bar, and it's usually at the top if you're participating. You should see some dots, and click on it, and you should see more, and then a term called a note on there. And I want you to click it. It's like a little pencil icon, and you are actually able to draw on the screen where every one of us can see it. Can you test that out for me? And let me know if you need me to restate those instructions. So it's usually the very top bar, 3 dots, or sometimes it'll already have that term a note, and it has a little pencil icon at the very top that you can use. And I will give you an example of what you can do here. So you can see that I can create some circles here. You even have a stamp where you can create a check mark. Let's see, please, yes, Ms. B. All right, at the very, very top of your screen, usually for the computers, it's at the top bar. You should have a little bar there. And then you have 3 dots that says you can click on it, and it should open up some other options. And what I'm looking for is the term a note, and it has a little pencil icon on there. Let me know if you see that. My bar is at the bottom. If it is at the bottom, then it may be, but most of the time, if you're participating in a Zoom call, it's on the top for you. Let me know how you're doing with that. Let's see. Oh, you don't have it. Huh, that's interesting. Let's see here. So when I do Zoom with my students, they are able to actually do it with me. Let's see. I'm surprised you're not able to do that, Vicki, as an option here. All right. So let's do a workabout. I'm actually going to show you how to do that, because that is one way that you can interact with your students during the PowerPoint, and they will be able to draw on the screen with you and, you know, put some different things on there so you can see. Also make sure that they're paying attention to what you're doing. So use your chat box since you don't see the bar, and let me know what challenges you have faced or feel like you will face for those who have not done online school student engagement yet, or haven't taught online just yet. What are some challenges you think you will face or have faced with online engagement? And if you don't have that, maybe even from your own perspective, because I know some of you've already talked about going to a higher level degree. I know I'm going through a master's program and all of it is online. And I know one of the things that I don't like specifically is that there's not engagement with people. Right, I'm just kind of having to go through modules and look at things. So let me know in the chat box from these options, and if there's something here that you feel that may be a challenge, then add it to the chat box. Do you think it's lack of participation? Do you think that's going to be one of your challenges when facilitating an online class? Or do you think they nurse aid students, because of our content, that they can't learn virtually? Or is it a matter of confidence? Do you feel like, you know what, I don't know, this is a different world for me. I'd rather be in front of my students, writing on a board, talking to them, engaging. I don't really want to, you know, mess with the online stuff, but I know I got to embrace it because this is where we are. And then video off throughout class setting. So these are simple options, but each of them goes into a topic that I want to definitely discuss with you. Technical support issues. That's a good one. Any others? Vicki, Melissa, any other thoughts? Lack of participation. Yes, most definitely. Yes, yes, yes. And what about you, Melissa? Any thoughts on what you feel like your challenges may be with your refresher program that you're about to jumpstart? What are some thoughts about online engagement?
Well, right now, currently, we're online as well for, I'm currently teaching medical assisting. I've been teaching that for about 10 years. And the problem that I'm facing right now is participation is good, but because we have to have so many hours of theory, having constant participation. So for example, we're using Zoom as well, and we're using Big Blue Button. Okay. And for example, the students will log in, attendance will be wonderful, but then throughout the afternoon, you'll see, you know, the attendance trickle down. So when the class resumes after break, 20 students are no longer there participating. It's now probably 12. So just how to, you know, as you've been saying, how to keep them engaged from beginning to end. Whereas, you know, in class they're there, and, you know, sometimes they may wander, but online it's just a little bit more difficult to maintain that level.
Definitely. Thank you for giving that extra example, because it helps. Content helps me give you some suggestions on what you can do with that. Perfect. And then Vicki added distractions from their location. So I'm in the process of getting permissions from some students that I just finished a class for. I did 3 classes for a school in South Carolina. And when I say each class had its own personality, each class had its own personality. So how I interacted, engaged with each class looked a little different. I really honestly was doing the same things. Sometimes I may take away certain activities because I felt like that group of students needed more of me discussing it than the group activities or then a writing activity. And that I do believe that you have to know the tone, right? And you have to know the environment. And if you taught, or even in a work environment, actually, you can work with a set of people, right? And the way that shift flows is different, but then you might even add just one person and that whole environment changes. And I believe that dynamic still exists in a virtual environment. So hopefully I can give you some tools that will help you navigate that a little bit better. So for the lack of participation in the video off through our class setting, that is more of an expectation thing. So what I would say, if you have students who are not participating and their video is off, one of the things that I required in the classroom setting, because it's virtual and I want to see you, is your video has to be on. It is the expectation, or you're not fully present in my mind. And most of the times the students, they will roll with it, but you have to restate it sometimes and let them know this is the expectation because we're doing it virtually. And I want to see if you're getting that information. No one put that we don't think that the students can learn virtually. Great. No one even talked about the confidence in the tools, but Ms. B did bring up a good point, is like technical issues. So one of the things that I did for my classes online is I gave them, and I wouldn't say a sample because they were really the true content that I wanted them to do for the class and the lecture, but I gave them an example of each one of them for that first week of class. For instance, my first project always is I want the students to develop a PowerPoint. Yeah, I want them to give me a PowerPoint to tell me what is their why. Why do you want to become a CNA? What is your story? And at the end of the class, I surveyed the students, and I will share some of those comments today. But a lot of them really like sharing that. They get really creative with that. And we did that all on Google Classroom. We did it. They used the Google PowerPoint. But that also allows me to navigate any issues that they may have with submitting an assignment. The other assignment that I gave them was a group assignment, so they had to connect with each other. Virtually, you can do on Zoom, you can do the breakout rooms. And also, we created a group me. So if they wanted to do it offline, they had to connect. And you know what a lot of the students did is they created their own free Zoom, and they connected offline outside of the classroom. So you can give them those options and let them know, hey, I want you to connect, talk about this video, and answer 3 simple questions. I don't really give them too much questions. I want really just to kind of get them to discuss and connect with each other. And in my surveys, I saw a lot of that. They really, really enjoyed the group activities. And I do it online. So Melissa, for your example with the medical assistant course, if you feel like the lecture is very heavy, then I would encourage you to break it up with some group assignments. Find some videos that also can give them some of that knowledge, and then you just complement it with content from your book. And I can help you with that a little bit more. And Ms. Vicky talked about distractions from their location. Most definitely, I always muted them, right? I wanted them to discuss and get off mute, and I would always remind them, hey, when you you can use the chat box, or you can get off mute, and they would do both. It's never a class that one would do one or the other. And there were times where, you know, we would actually go with it. Honestly, I had one young lady, her daughter would run and she would scream, like give it the very best of her ability. And instead of me being annoyed by it, I would honestly go in that moment, and I would give them example, and I do. My oldest was just exactly the same way. She would scream, and we would wonder, okay, what are you doing? Like, you know, this is not appropriate. We're in a building, you know, or we're in church or something. And we would all laugh. The moment would end, and then I would get back into lecture. So I would recommend that, because it is virtual and you will have those distractions, maintain them being on mute. You can actually, you know, own that and run that from your side of it. But also, if it happens, don't allow it to shift the environment of the classroom. You know, I usually just go with it and then bring them back in. The students are laughing about something, or they may even give an example of their own child or their own nephew or something. And it's a moment that we're bonding, and then we're moving forward. So I would just recommend that you kind of go with that a little bit. Thank you for participating with this. It gives me a little bit more understanding of what you're feeling about this. So we're going to review a little bit of the visual learners, auditory learners, those that are hands-on, reading and writing learners. So tell me, what do you think you are? What is your preferred way to receive information and learn? What do you know? What is your preferred way? Let's see. Visual, okay. Hands-on, tactile. Yes, yes, yes. Do anybody feel that they're all of the? Do you feel like, you know what, it depends on the information? I know if, as I've, okay, Melissa's like, yeah, me. I know as I've become older, I don't know if it's because I'm older, but I receive information so many different ways. But if you would have asked me even 10 years ago, I would say I was only a hands-on learner. But in reality, I'm a note taker. I am that person that always have a tablet in the classroom. There were times, especially for nursing school, I would record myself reviewing the quiz, the content, and listen to it in the car. So there's sometimes, it just depends on how my brain is working, what's going on in the world, that, yes, repetition, that I may actually get information from all of these routes. So your visual learners are going to be really good with your PowerPoint presentation. So definitely have those up. Also, giving them a copy of your PowerPoint presentation with the lines in it so that they can make notes. I had a lot of students saying, Ms. Laura, please send us the PowerPoint so we can write notes with you. And it would be that one thing that I would forget, because in my mind, I'm like, well, we have it here, but those are the individuals that you may want to post it on your Google Classroom if you use that as a resource and already have it preloaded there so they just can go and download it and print it out. Auditory is pretty obvious, right? It's that person that loves to hear it coming out of someone's mouth, but even a video. I love to search Google to find videos that will connect the student to the content of the book. And I'm a lot of my discussion is going to be based on the Hartman's book because it's the common one for nurse aid students. Really simple. It's not overwhelming for the students. So I really love that book. But I'm also the nurse because I've had instructors that are service. They come from the Air Force. They made sure that we went beyond our role and understood, okay, you report to a doctor, but I want you to understand how he or she thinks so that you can report and connect to that person a lot better. So that's honestly the mindset that I bring into a CNA class. I don't hold their hand, you know, but we will go and look at, okay, if we're looking at cardiac arrest, we're going to look at a video and we're going to see what's happening with that resident when they have a cardiac arrest. And I always, and it would, you know, usually something short and sweet, no more than 3 or 4 minutes. And then I would bring them back. What is something you didn't know? You know, and one of the videos that they were mind blown about was choking, you know, and how it happens. And I had showed them a video of the 2 different, I didn't know we had 2 different pipes. I didn't know we had a trachea. And I'm like, really? You know, something so simple as just giving them a visual and not just telling them what they should do when this happens. Showing them visually what is actually happening to that resident body is important to me as an instructor. I want them to go beyond just the book. And that's the way I learn. If I want to know it, I want to know what is happening with that person body. And then you got the hands-on. So you're wondering, like, how do we do that virtually? So I believe when you add the group activities and the engagement, how many of you have had your students, or any student, maybe for the nurse student this is easy for you, but have you thought about having your student write a paper? Let me know in the chat box. Or am I the only one insane that would do that? What are your thoughts about them writing like a 2 to 3 page research paper about something? And I'll tell you what the topic was for my class and always is. And I'll share with you their feedback on that activity. Do you think that's too much for a CNA student to do? Tell me your thoughts about that. Oh, Ms. V do, okay, all right, so we're on the right, that track too. Yes, case study, okay, awesome. So I actually have my students, especially for chapter 4 in the Hartman's book, because it's so content heavy on chronic conditions, I will have them write a 2 to 3 page paper. I will have them pick a chronic condition, do a PowerPoint, and present it to the class. And on Google Classroom, they're actually able to share their screen and talk from it just like I'm doing. So it also helps those hands-on learners, auditory, visual. I mean, it really hits all of those different learning styles, and it allows them to own the learning, right? They're not just listening to us, give them that information, but they're in it, they're diving in. The components of that paper, and this is something you can write down in your workbook, is I always do introduction, right? I just kind of give them the structure. I don't necessarily you know, hit them hard for like citations. I really just want to see content is my real focus. I also want them to tell me like the most common medications that are prescribed for that condition and what side effects a resident may experience. That is important because a lot of times our CNAs are not getting that information. They're not knowing that Mrs. Smith just started a new medication all the time. And they don't know that when Mrs. Smith is complaining about these things, that it actually is in response or adverse reaction to medication. So I actually do just a little medication review with them in that specific activity because I want them to go beyond the role and understand the full scope of what's going on with their residents. So, this is just a little review of some ways and some things you can do in your class if you haven't already to engage your students a little bit. Let's see. Yes, a case study was required for the course, anticoagulant, direct, all of those common ones, right? Because we want them to know. I want you to know how to communicate to the nurse. When you come away from our school and our class, in my mind, you always represent me. I know we can't resolve personality stuff and those things, but in reality to excellence, I'm just a little optimistic in that if we do a good enough job in teaching them, that they will go out and they will operate that way and they will serve those residents properly. All right, so we're gonna go live to Google Classroom, and you should have gotten a workbook copy where it gives you the different categories when we go to the stream. We're going to talk about the stream and the benefits to utilizing it on Google Classroom. Also the classwork, how to post a few of those examples that I gave you. And then grades. I love Google Classroom because you can grade, you can run a report, which is required by your state for your nurse aid students. And also you can show them their progress. You can actually set that in the system to be able to see their progress. So let's go there. Do you have any questions while I'm traveling to the Google Classroom? Any questions that I can answer?
In alignment with the requirements for CRAC.
I'm not even familiar with CRAC. Can you tell me what that is, Ms. B?
Okay, they are the regulators for online instruction. And like I told you that I was in the process, I'm working on my application for higher learning. It is a requirement. I would love to use Google Classroom, but I'm just not sure if it's CRAC. I guess that'll be a question for them.
Yes, and can you put that name in the chat box? I'll do some research on my own also and see. It's definitely something that's unfamiliar. That way I can kind of look it up too and see, is it a specific LMS that they're wanting you to use, or you're just wondering if it has to check off some boxes?
Yeah, check off some boxes, and I can send that to you as well offline.
Yes, please. Thank you, Ms. B. And I'll do some digging. Awesome.
Will do.
Yes. So I am already logged in. I actually think what I'll do is kind of log out because I want you to see it from that standpoint. When you student goes into the Google Classroom, they are actually able to add themselves to the classroom manually if they know your code. And here in this checkbox right here, there is an option to join the class. I'm gonna put a little arrow here. Make sure that you can see my screen too, yes. So they can just click join your class. And based on that code that you give them, and I'm gonna just click on it here, it opens up that new box and all they have to do is type in the code. So again, that first week, I do expect that my students will have some type of technical issues in that if they haven't used the platform before, they will ask you some common sense questions. Let me put it that way. You know, even though I put it in an email, I send it in a text message, they'll be like, Miss Laura, how do you join the class again? So I won't tell you that me showing you this, or even you giving them a video, that you won't have those questions. It's just common. Every 3 of the classes, I can say something once and I swear I have to say it again. But this is one option of how they can join a classroom on your Google Classroom. You will give them the code, and I'll show you where you're getting that code from here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on test class. So here on this screen here, this is your class code. So when you create a class, each of them have its very unique code. It's kind of like its own room that it resides in. You're gonna go ahead and click on it. You can emphasize it, make it bigger. And usually what I do is I kind of send it all in a welcome email to the students. You know, that way they can go and join it from that way. Sometimes Google Classroom wants a certain type of email. It's kind of weird. I'll go here to people just to kind of show you. Here you can even add other instructors. So if you are teaching that and you're building your team to help you with educating the students, or if you're training the teacher on how to use it, then just go ahead and add them by clicking the email, and you can put their email there. And the system will let you know, like, we can't use, like, it won't use like a corporate type email or any email like my business. It won't use that. It has to be like a Gmail account. Sometimes it takes Yahoo. It seems like for some of the students, it didn't take some of those emails, and I'm not sure why. So you can add an instructor there. And then you also have that option to manually add the student in. And I'll just give an example of that. Let's see if it'll take this email. Yeah, it looks like it will. So notice that it's grayed out. So it's going to send me an email saying that I have, and the teacher has invited them to join the class, and they just have to click accept. And then their name will be more bolded for you. So you'll know that they've accepted that invite. You actually have the ability, let's say one of my clients asks, well, what if a student is not paying, right? I mean, you know, we're not really talking about that today, but just to give you an example of that, you can click a student and you can remove them from there so they won't have access. And then whenever they resolve whatever issue it is, then you can definitely re-add them back. So that's something that you can do more on a business side of things. So on your stream, think about your stream like a message board, not a Facebook message board, right? I think I know I'm in a spot where I'm needing a break for social media, but this is more of announcements. Also, I've used it to do group discussions. I can post videos on here for the students. Welcome to the class. It sends them an email, so you don't have to do multiple ways of communicating. You can solely use Google Classroom as long as they're at it, and just use that as your one thing that you communicate to, because they get an alert. And there's also a Google Classroom app. So there's times where I'm traveling, like with my husband, and I'm grading papers because there's an app, and it'll actually, I put on a notification. So every time a student submits an assignment, it'll notify me, or I can put it on silent, you know, depends on your preference. But that student also can access it via phone and be anywhere and doing your assignments. So just, I think that makes this even better of an accessible resource for you. Also, you can decide if you want to only send that message to certain students, so those other students won't see. So you can do that, or you can send them an email also, and I'll show you how to do that. So one of the first shortcut I want to show you on your stream is your reuse option here. So let me just close this out. So this checkbox here, let me circle the little arrows that you have here. You can click on that, and it actually, let's say you had other classes like I do on this platform. Everything that I posted previously will pull up, and I can reuse that same comment and edit it. So I'll press on the first one, and at the very bottom, click reuse, and it opens it up. So if I want to make any edits, I'm able to do that to that message. Also, I talked about how you can add video content. You can add a paper right here where the pin is. You click on it, and it gives you options to do that. You can put a file there. Let's say you want to post your PowerPoint for the class today. I do recommend you preload that early on, but if you are like me, some days I'm a step behind, you can add it here and say, hey, this is your PowerPoint for the lecture tomorrow or later on. You can also link things there, like if there's a video, for instance, as you can see, I record my sessions with the students. So I actually can post a review video there for them, and I use that through Dropbox. I usually upload it on Dropbox and I save it, and I can email that and just tell them, hey, here's some resources so you can study what we reviewed in class today. Any questions about this shortcut on the stream? So it could be your message board. Everything that you post also tells, like it posts on the stream also. Like I put some examples of some gamification examples that we're gonna review today. So it'll actually put a little note up here showing the students that I've posted new information. So again, to me, it's that one-stop shop where you can post information. The other thing is upcoming. So anything that you put due, it'll actually show here when that student logs in. So it gives them a good snapshot of what's coming up, what's posted, so that they can pace themselves or schedule their assignments. Let me see if we have a question. Oh yes, Ms. Vicky. A question. I frequently get, does your platform track the time the student is on the platform? So does Google Classroom check it? You know, I actually emailed Google Classroom about that, and I haven't received a response. I don't think from my perspective and what I've seen in research, I don't think they've added that option yet. But as soon as I know anything about that, I will definitely let y'all know and post it online. Would students have 24-hour access to tech support? That's a good question, V. I have never had to utilize that. I have never had to utilize that. So I'll have to find out if that's even an issue. So when you say tech support, maybe tell me a little bit more about what you're thinking a student will have trouble with. And maybe I've probably had it, hopefully, and I can tell you how I resolve that with the students. What are you thinking that they may have a challenge with?
I don't know, just quirks with getting into Google Classroom. I mean, anything that could go wrong.
Go wrong. You're like,
yeah, right. And they couldn't get into, you know, do their work, review lectures, things of that nature. Because I mentioned CRAC, one of the guidelines is students have to have access to tech support.
24/7.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay, y'all giving me some homework today. Let me find out. That's all good. Yeah. That's an interesting requirement. I like it though, because if there's trouble, it's pretty user friendly. They also, there's so many videos. So one of the things I did for one of my clients is I added how-to videos that are already done by a lot of people who are Google Classroom gurus, as I would say, onto her Google Classroom. So if the student is having trouble, the video is already uploaded on this part of the platform. So they can just go and, you know, review. It kind of causes them to own it a little bit. But if it's a requirement for you, then let me dig on that. Let me see if they have access to that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. They're very, very specific. I'm a little happy I'm in Texas, B. I'm just saying. I'm usually the tech support.
That's funny. That's funny.
I'm like, okay, let's do this. Let's Zoom. Let me show you how to navigate. I had my daughter add herself, and we just, you know, it's just me. I love to just dive in and figure it out myself. But I'm usually it. I need to get on Google Classroom's payroll. So one of the main shortcuts is your reuse option. I love to save time. So if you have multiple class over time, you can add it, or you can use that one class and, you know, take off students and re-add them, re-add a new group of students. As you saw in my home page, I have a few classes on this specific platform that I'm either supporting in some way, shape, or form, or they're a client of mine. So it'll show that way. Like if your student you know, had multiple classes for whatever reason, this is how that homepage would look for them. And they can also see their deadlines, like things that are coming up due for each of those classes that they may be in. But for you, I would recommend that you just one class, keep it simple for that student. So we have our reuse option. You have your upcoming. That student also can click view all, and it opens up all of the assignments that is coming up or been posted by you in that classroom for the student. So to me, it's real user-friendly. Some of the common things that I heard from students who was using it was accessing it. How do I join class? But again, this is after I've already given them the information. Two, immediately thinking that they can't. I had one young lady that was like, I just can't do it. And I'm like, what type of phone do you have? And she said, an iPhone. I said, girl, you can do this. It's like, you can access, you have apps on your phone, you can, you know. So really for her, it was just more of, it's new and I don't want to do it and I don't think I can do it. But once we walked through it once and I had her submit an assignment that night, I never heard anything. So usually the first week is when I would, you know, every so often, Miss Laura, I wasn't able to add myself, or I wasn't able to submit this assignment. After the first week, I didn't hear any of those type of things. If anything, it's more of, oh, I'm sorry, I'm turning the assignment in late. Because it will show you that. It'll show you if they're turning it in late. So, but other than that, everything was resolvable. And partly it's because I've tested it out from a student's perspective and, you know, went through all of the, what could possibly go wrong on the first week of class. The next one on the top, so I'm navigating in Google Classroom from the bar here. You have your stream, not a very circle, and you have your classwork. So everything that you upload, you're gonna do on this slot or this area in Google Classroom. You have the ability to give things a name and category, so you can kind of organize your assignments for the look of it. You know, for me, it's just I want to see it. I don't want it to be scattered. I want the test to be underneath tests, you know, group activities to be underneath group activities. So I'm gonna just scroll down just to kind of give you a broader look of some of the things I just added, just to kind of give you some examples. But in other classrooms, it looks pretty massive. And I'll actually give you an example of that in one of my classes that I just finished off. This is my writing exercise I had them do. They really liked that. I was kind of surprised. Some quizzes, and then PowerPoint. This is that first one I talked to you about. What is your why? Workbook. I even uploaded Hardman's, not uploaded, but just added those questions for the things that I could, so that they can submit their workbook answers online. They still had to do it manually, but just to make sure that they're trekking with the class and they're doing the assignments, since we're doing it all virtually. Group assignments, love group assignments, got a lot of good feedback about those group assignments. Since we're here, let me click on them so I can just kind of show you what they could be for your online students. So for this one, this is based on, I believe it's chapter 3, where Hartman's talks about religious and cultural differences. So I wanted the students to connect. Hartman gives a great resource on different type of common religions, and the book goes into some also cultural differences. So I asked the students to pick 2 and compare, and also give me an example of, you know, how would you interact, respect that resident's cultural beliefs, or how would, you know, if it's an eating thing, that's like for Jews, you know, they eat kosher, they don't eat certain bacon and different things like that. What would be your responsibility and role as a nurse aide with a resident who has that belief system? So just getting them to kind of dig in and talk about those different things collectively, and then having them submit the assignment individually. So that's usually what I do for the group assignments for the students. This is my very first one, and it's as soon as I found this video when I first started teaching, I love to show it, and I definitely want to send it to y'all in an email. And this is a nice, funny video about Mary Maxwell, and she's actually the person that I build one of my case studies on. She gives them her perspective of aging in a very comedic manner, and the students love it. They laugh coming back from the video. So this is one of those activities that I may actually have them go on a break, and once they come back, utilize breakout rooms on Zoom, discuss, and then individually it's due for them to submit their comments. So I'll actually go into this assignment and kind of show you, since I'm already here, of what that can look like for your students. So here's the document that I created, and I'll actually go and show you how I did that. And I just put basic instructions. I need you to watch the video. Also, she reads a poem, so I actually copied and pasted the poem in there. And then I asked them just some simple questions. Describe Mary's description of senior experience in aging. What do you enjoy about that? As a future nurse aide, how would you describe, how would you connect with that residents, right? Because one of their big roles is connection. They need to understand the resident's personality, their perspective on things, so that they can be able to engage with them a little bit more. So I want to know, how are you going to connect with her? What are your thoughts? And what about if she isn't feeling well? You know, what questions can you ask to kind of dig into that a little bit deeper? Because part of their role is to report, right? To be able to observe and report those type of things to the nurse. So this is just a small little snippet of this activity, but it starts to get their brain tickling a little bit about how they're going to engage with residents that are in a senior living facility. And also it builds a case study that I want them to build upon, as I mentioned a little bit earlier. So since you have not, I think most, maybe not all, but done an assignment on Google Classroom, would it help if I showed you how I add an assignment on Google Classroom for your students? Would that be helpful? Like from scratch? Just to give you an example. Okay, perfect. I got one yes, I'm sold. All right. So obviously, if you're brand new, none of this is here, right? I've done this as an example for you. You have your create button. So this is where you're going to always start in regards to starting an assignment. And then when you pull it out here, make sure my screen transitioned, you have different options. Assignment, quiz assignment. So if you want to build a test, for instance, then you have the ability to do that. If you just want to ask a question, you can do that, like a discussion question you want them to respond to. That's an option. If you want to, very detailed. Okay, perfect. I might go overboard. So please tell me, like, Gloria, that's enough. But I want you to feel empowered after you leave that you can do this today if you wanted to. Material, so let's say I had a class ask about why are women signs and symptoms different, I believe in heart attack, cardiac arrest. So I went to dig. I'm that person, I like to find answers. So I posted material that I found about that topic. One of them asked about gangrene in that classroom. So that might be an option that I'll use for materials. Not something that's required, but if you want to know, hey, this is there for you. And again, this is your shortcut underneath classwork. Reuse. So if you've already done it or you already have used it in a different class, guess what? All you have to do is press that pick what you want, and then it'll come up live to be able to be used and edited at your will. I love it. It's one of my favorite shortcuts for this option. So I'm going to go ahead and go into quiz because it's one of the most common things you might do. You want to maybe give it your title. Test exam. I don't know why I'm putting exam. Give some instructions. Also, if you had several, let's say you're building your business, which you will, you have several classes, you can actually post this to all of your classes. That's your second shortcut on classwork. You don't have to do it in every single one. So once you finish doing that quiz, you can actually click each of your classes that you have, and it'll post to every single one, saving you some time. And let's say, for instance, I had a few students that are absent or won't be there, and it's a test, I don't want them to see it yet. Then you can also select who sees that assignment and who doesn't on here. So I'm gonna, you already have a quiz template. So when you click that quiz, it's already pre-populated for you. You can determine if the points look different, like for the quizzes, you might do 50 points. So you can change that if you want. Also, you have the opportunity to put a due date. This is where you would say it needs to be due by a certain time, date, based on your Dropbox. And then it opens up that calendar and it gives you a time option, and you can manually change it based on your preference and what you want that student to do. All right, so let's say I wanted to add something. Let's say this is a quiz in response to some content that we discussed in our lecture, but I want to add some extra resources. So you click add, and you could, again, add a YouTube video, a file, or link some type of information in addition to that if you want to. If not, you just click on your quiz and you have your template here. You can copy and paste. I'm always like trying to save time for everybody. Don't, unless you're creating your own questions, which I do. But for the test exams, I like to use Hartman's. A lot of their stuff is already there and populated, but like for a pop quiz, I want to create that. So you can definitely use your questions. You want to give it a name too, and make sure that it populates. Usually it populates, but sometimes it's funny. There. And we click on it, we're gonna, just put in a random question. Here in this specific box, you can choose what type of question you want it to be. So Google Classroom grades your exams more for your multiple choice, or if you have a true or false. So something that has a finite answer. Now, when you want them to expound and give like short answer, you want them to, give you more details, then you will definitely have to review it on the back end. You have to review and see if they got those answers. When you click on it, you have your different options, short answer, paragraph. I usually use short answer, paragraph, multiple choice. Those are the ones I kind of stick to when I'm creating a quiz on here. And then you can put your options. And we'll just do one question because it's pretty, once you see it, you're like, okay, I got this. Not yellow. And that's purple, love purple. Awesome. So we got our 4 multiple choice. At the very bottom, I hope you can see this answer key option here. You want to click on it. This gives you, it opens up an option to give points to that question if they got it right or wrong. So let's say we want it to be 5 points. And then you select what is your answer, for that. Let's say it's a different question. What is an example of ADLs or something, but it's favorite color. So you click it, you press done, and you always want to make sure that you click required, because then that student is not going to be able to skip it, or they won't overlook it. They can't move forward without giving it an answer. For your short answer and paragraph, unless that student answers it verbatim, it's going to automatically mark it wrong. So that's why I say that you really have to go on the back end of this form and look at those type of responses, because they would literally have to get each and every single one of your words that you put into the system for it to know that, oh, this is correct. Otherwise, using multiple choice is a great one. And your short answer and paragraph, you just have to go on the back end and see what they responded. Do y'all have any questions about this that I can answer? Any questions? None so far. Awesome. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, Ms. V.
Are your test quizzes, they're through Google Classroom as well? You don't require them to come in for tests and quizzes?
No, no, I didn't.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
All
You
right.
definitely can. And one way to ensure that they're not cheating, what I did is I had them, they had to, again, have their video on, and I had them show me their environment. So their space had to be clean, you know, nothing on the desk. So let's say you do have students, I had a few students who didn't have a laptop. So they would actually have to get 2 phones. There's somebody else in the house with a phone. So one phone had to be on the full time, and one would be, they would be logged in on Google Classroom. So they couldn't at no point, unless they're finished with that exam, turn off their screen. But
Got it.
yeah, so every single one of them were able to submit an exam. So if you're doing it virtually, that's one way to kind of get over that hump a little bit. That's actually how I do it for my master's degree. I think I have a big old camera on my screen.
Okay.
Yes. Any other questions? Any other questions that I can answer for you? All right, so it automatically saves. One of the things I love about Google Classroom, you don't really have to continue to click something. It'll save on its own. It'll update the name and everything that I've put in. And then I'm gonna click assign. I'm satisfied with what I put in. It's posted here. Notice that, make sure that my screen transitioned. Depending upon how many students you have enrolled, it'll show how many is assigned. And then once they turn it in, then that number will go up. There have been times where the student submitted it and it doesn't turn in, it doesn't show on the turn in portion. And I honestly couldn't answer you that question on the why part, but there's a way to verify that. So let me just show you what I did. When we go in here, we want to press view assignment. You'll see all of your students lined up here, and it'll have a green 100, but the score won't be there, right? Because we haven't put a grade to it. So then what I will do is click on the assignment again. And this is how it actually looks for your student when they come, they click on that. But I want you to see this pencil icon right on the bottom right-hand side. I got a blue arrow there. This is how you can get on the back side of that form. You're gonna click it, and it sounds like we have an alarm. Maybe it's a flood. We have been having a lot of rain weather here in Texas. So notice that, I'll actually go back out, that only when we first got in, all you saw was questions. And now all you see questions and you see responses. So the student won't have that option, only you, the instructor, has that option to be able to look on the back side, what I call the back side of the form. We're gonna click on it, and there's no responses here, but if the student has those responses, and I'll give you an example of one that's completed, you will be able to see what those different responses are for those students, and you can grade it. Any questions about that? I'm actually go to a real assignment so you can see it on how it may look. Let's see. Let's see an example that we might have some responses on here. All right, we're gonna click the pencil, go on the back end of responses. And now you see there's more options: summary, question, and individual. So we can look at that form from a summary perspective. It just shows what was answered. You know, also if I see that students got more than half of a question wrong, then I can kind of figure out, okay, what's going on with that, or did I not give a good lecture or understanding of that content? So it gives you a few options to be able to look at how your students performed on that quiz and that assignment in a graph way. Pretty cool, right? Then you have the ability to look at per question answer, and then you can also look at it from an individual standpoint. You can actually go through each of the students' responses and see what they got wrong. So this is what you would have to do for like a short answer or paragraph for sure. And I'll see if this one has that option. Let's say you just want to test their knowledge and you want them to write it down. You can tell a little bit more when they're typing stuff in versus if they just kind of memorizing it. So this is an example of like a skill question that this class had. And notice it already marked it wrong, but I have the grid or the answer key for that. So I'll look and see, are they answering it correctly? So you definitely can't teach skill virtually, but you can at least give them the theory, right? The theory behind it. And this, for this school, this is how they built their exams. And this is how they wanted me to issue these type of questions. So that's the only disadvantage I would say in regards to short answers, that you would definitely have to go in the back end and see if your students did it correctly, because unless they do it verbatim, it's automatically going to say that it's wrong. Do y'all have any questions about how to create an assignment here, a quiz on Google Classroom? Any questions that I can answer for you? Clarify anything?
No, it looks very user-friendly. Thanks
It
so much.
is. It is. It really, I really enjoyed it. And I wish I knew about it like way back in the day, as they say. I really did. It saved me a lot of trouble. Also, you will notice that their grade is here. Let me show you this part. Right here. For that student, I won't go down because it shows the student name, but you can look and see what points they got out. And for that student, it was just those skilled questions. And again, you would just verify, because I was asking for them to do a short answer because that's how the school wanted that question to be asked. But if it's multiple choice, long as you put that information in there, it gives you the grade, and all you have to do is, usually I kind of note it down, and then I'll show you where you would grade it at for those students. Pretty straightforward, good way to do that. The other thing that is important is always create a question that states to write their name. So Google Classroom will collect emails for you so you can know which student responded how. But guess what? Those emails don't always, I know my emails back in the day, I don't know what I was thinking. I can't even remember them, right? They may not connect to the student's name. So it makes it a little bit more challenging. So I always add like a short answer. Right? Like type your full name. That way I can make sure that I'm grading the right person and I'm looking at the right test and I'm not confusing it. Because sometimes it could be a little weird. So I'm putting a little arrow on your it's like a little screw icon there. This is how you can ensure that you can put parameters in the quiz for your students. And then you preset what the system needs to do. I wanted to collect email responses always. You want to know, unless it's a survey, like I did a survey of the class, then I want them to be able to do it in confidence. That way I'm getting good information. But for tests, I need to know who submitted it. You can also isolate if you want to only allow them to do it once. And that way they can't, keep submitting. Even if they did that, actually the system will mark it. It'll actually show their email and a number by it to let you know how many times that student went and did that quiz or assignment. So it's really good at that. And then you can put, do you want to allow them to edit it? Do you want them to edit it? Do you want them to see the summary charts and test responses? The presentation of it is just asking, like, do you want there to be a progression bar? Shuffle the questions. So this is when you're talking about an exam, this is what I do for exams. I'll shuffle the questions. So they'll be like, Miss Laura, it asked me for my name in the middle, you know. And I'm like, that's fine. Just go through the test. But it also kind of helps with ensuring that they're not cheating. You know, they're not able to share answers. So you can actually shuffle those the question order on that exam. And then you always want to click make it a quiz, and it's already preset because that's the option we pick. And do you want them to get a grade immediately, or do you want to wait till you look at that grade? And also, what do you want them to see? You want them to see missed questions, correct answers, point values. So you can put all of those settings in your quiz. Any questions about this? Good stuff. All right. So we won't be able to go in all of the assignments, but this is one of the more common ones you probably will create in Google Classroom. And I think it's worth the travel, right? To kind of look and see how you create that. So you've got your classwork grid. This is where you create all your assignments. You could put categories to your group assignments. For me, because I want to not only, you know, reach one type of learner, I want the visual learner. AARP has really good videos about aging. So definitely look that up. This one is a really cool one because it shows, they ask the millennials, what do they think old is? And then they match them up with a senior who can lift weights, do yoga. It's hilarious. The students really loved it. They were like, oh my gosh, you know? So this is a good, they have a very good like resource free online that you can just attach it to an assignment and then add some questions. Yeah, I really like it. They enjoyed it. They really enjoy these videos. I'm always looking for stuff, y'all. I'm that person. I like to research. And then I always ask questions like, what do you think old is? How, and for this video, I wanted to know, how do you promote independence? Because these seniors were not dependent. They were still active. They were, you know, lifting weights. They were teaching the millennials how to do stuff. And then at the end, they asked them, well, how old do you think old is? And that was the whole theme of it. And it's pretty funny. But I wanted to hear, okay, now, because we've already talked about promoting independence and its importance. And now you see aging is not, it doesn't look one way. So how will you promote independence for residents who have different types of abilities and disabilities? Rather if that is a mental thing or physical, how will you do that? So you can really engage them in different ways. I always try to find a video though. I always try to find something to connect those dots for them. Any questions? I want to make sure I'm giving you all my little tricks for Google Classroom. Any questions that I can answer for you about the classwork option here? I did a little Google slide for one of my clients, but I did it as a pacing guide because she's just starting her online school. So you can get real creative. I love being creative. So this is just an example of something you can do in a PowerPoint, and it's something that the students can use as a way to get through the class. You can definitely put checkpoints in there, whatever you want. But if I wanted them to submit something, they actually, I can actually assign this to the student and cause them to edit it in some type of way. Let's say I wanted them to create a PowerPoint slide about dementia and Alzheimer's. And maybe I gave them a case study example of a resident who is having some cognitive challenges and some behavior issues. And I want them to present to me different things that they can do to engage with that resident. You can use that, or you can do that on a PowerPoint slide, or you can do it in a document. But sometimes if you allow your students, especially your visual learners, those who are hands-on, to do something with that knowledge, then you can give them great examples and you can allow them to be creative with their learning and own it a little bit better versus them just kind of talking to you. You really get to see what's really in their minds when you ask them to do some assignments and get that information out there. So we talked about stream, we talked about classwork, you know what the people tab is, just you and your students. And then you have this grade grid, I love it. So all of your assignments would be laid out here. As you progress and add, you'll start to see it. And also you would have the option to just grade it from this standpoint, actually. And then you can edit the quiz in. That's another way to access it if you needed to make some changes. Here I just put a little test grade. Let's say Kiora made 100 and I wanted her to receive that. Then I would actually click return and it will email her her grade. So that student is always updated on the grades as you grade them, every time you return those grades to them. This is one way that you can grade all of your students, because on this side, let's say you have 10, you know, all of them will be listed here, and you will see a line with 100 green because they turned in, and you will be able to grade those assignments manually. All right, any questions about that? I'm gonna show you how to run that big old report that every state wants you to do when you're grading us, just for record keeping for your students' grade. It's kind of weird because Google Classroom, you know, we have this option here, right? It doesn't allow you, this is like your class settings. Let's say you want to change your class name, like I put test class, some other general things that you can do here. Students can post, you can actually regulate if they can't. Only you can post. So let's say you have some students who's a little bit more expressive than some, you can actually change up your settings for that. And then also, do you want them to see an overall grade? You know, so they can always, when they go in, they'll have a grade option. Do you want them to see total points or points by category? Let's see. As the class progresses, will each student also be able to see their GPA or maintain progress? So this is where, good question, Melissa. This is where you would isolate how you want them to see. Do you want them to see it by category? Remember when we were putting tests, I put tests, group assignments. So that's what it means, like in that overall category, what is their weight, their grade? Or do you want them to see total points altogether, or no overall grade at all? So you would have to go here and put that setting there for the student. So notice when I click total points, it asks, do I want to show the overall grade? Now I'm able to click that. So when that student logs in, they actually will have a grade tab available to them so that they can see the overall grade in the class. Does that answer your question, Melissa? And then you want to make sure you click save. Let that system know that that's the way you want it to be. Perfect. Okay, you're so welcome. So now we're going to run grades, like for the whole class. I want you to see how you're able to do that on Google Classroom, because you want to see all of your students. You actually have to go through it from a assignment perspective. I don't know why they have it that way. That's one of my recommendations for them to change, because in my mind, it would be best that it would be here, right, in the grade section. But for whatever reason, it's a user-friendly system, really love it, but that's one of the things that I'm just like, okay, that might have been better differently. So you can go on any assignment at all. Let me go back and do it again, just because I do it and like I'm by myself. View that assignment. I clicked on it to open it up, view it, and then now I'm in the back end of an assignment. Same icon that we've been seeing throughout, that little screw. But this one opens up, it gives us something different. And it gives us exactly what we want if we want to run grades for the whole entire class that we're in. I'm going to click on that. And then notice that it gives you the option to copy all grades in Google Sheets, which is normally what I use, or you can download those grades. I usually do that. I'm going to just actually click it so you can kind of see what and how it opens up for us. So it actually gives you an Excel type sheet. You'll see all of your students on that left-hand side also would give a grade average over the overall assignments that you've done, and then those grades that you've graded. So if you haven't released grades and returned them to the students, it won't show up here. But once you have, you can run that report. I usually would run it every week and send it to the school that I was teaching for, so that they can see how the students are progressing. Also, you can edit it. You know, let's say you just want to see tests and all of that. You can definitely, you know, collapse and hide some things just so you can focus your attention on what you need to see. But this is your big grade book, and it actually saves to your Google Drive. So every time you run that report, it's actually saving to your Google Drive for you. It has your test name on the very top, my left side, and the date that you ran that report. So if your class name would have been there, it's a test class, so that's what it states. Also, if you want to share it, let's say you have to submit these grades to somebody else, like I have to for the school that I was teaching for, you can actually add their emails here and send them that form. Oops, I collapsed it too soon. Send them that form. You can put if you just want them to be able to view it or edit the form. And it'll actually email that person and send you a copy of that also. Any questions about that? That's one of the best features, because I know in Texas we have to have these grades run and have to have them on file, and that eliminates me having to write it down or type it up myself. Any questions about that? Anything I can clarify before we transition off of Google Classroom? Everybody's doing good? Yes, yes. Let's see. It is impressive, right, Vicki? Do you use Google Classroom? Did you use it, Vicki, in your classes? No, okay. So this is a new one too. Okay. I really, really like it. It wasn't too hard, and it's so many, I know everybody on the line, especially being a nurse, there's so many learning management systems I had to use just being a student. This one to me is the most simplest so far. Oh, LearnDash, that's a new one for me. Does it give you the same type of features? LearnDash, that's a new, I don't know why I haven't heard of LearnDash. It's pretty interesting. I like it though. You can customize this picture. I uploaded a picture here. They have templates like little generic, colorful things, but oh, okay. So Google Classroom gives you more features. Perfect. That's awesome. I'm glad we were able to get into that a little bit more. Is there any other assignment or any example that you want me to show you on Google Classroom before we travel along to some interactive games? Anything, anybody want me to show something else here? I think what I'll do is I'll do just the session just on Google Classroom, because I think we could actually spend a whole hour talking about that. I think I'll do that, actually. I'll do that specifically for nurse aid instructors and owners, because it's a lot of good stuff here. Okay, when I stream videos via Google Classroom, how is it? You know, Vicki, I've never used, interesting enough, because you can use, I always forget the feature that we have here. Oh, I can't even think of the let me see, the option. Let me see, let me go in my consulting one. I'll show you. It does come with the video that Vicki was saying, like you can stream and all of that, but I normally use Zoom. I like Zoom, so I've not, what is it called? I just clicked on it. I can't even think of what it's, oh, I can't even think of what this is called, even though I'm seeing it. But notice I clicked on, let me go back to what I did. I clicked on this icon here, and this is unique to the classroom. I have it on my consulting. Oh, you had problems with Zoom, did you? I didn't. So this is the option. So I've never used it though. I've never used this option. It did come along with my my Google Classroom for my consulting company, and I've not used it. So I really can't even give you any feedback on how the video is for it at all. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. Might have to test it out and see. But it gave me one just for this class, you know, that way you can share that for the students so they know where to connect. Yeah, I'm not sure, Ms. Vicki. I think Zoom was so overloaded during this time that people were having trouble. It honestly didn't give me any trouble, and I taught the class for like 6 weeks. I literally just finished with a class last week. So it was pretty good to me, thankfully. Thankfully, we didn't have any trouble. Any other questions I can answer for you before we transition and go into some interactive games, simple that you can use? You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for asking. I might have to test it out just to know how it, I always want to know. You ask me a question, I'm like, I figure that out. Any questions I can answer for you, Ms. V, Melissa, about Google Classroom since we're here? Everybody's feeling good? Good thus far. Okay, awesome. Yes. So that's a nice size highlight on Google Classroom. So you know the benefits of it and how it can be so effective and a good LMS, similar LMS type system to use when you're doing online learning. And I will do a class just to dive into that because I really want you to know how to create those assignments and sometimes just do it with somebody. I mean, I'm a person, I like to dig, but if you do it with, you know, maybe we can do it live and you're actually building some of that, then that might be even more helpful for you. And I want you to be able to utilize this resource. And it's free for business owners. That's another thing. If you have a school, it actually, an educational institute, you have to verify your website and do some other steps, but it's free for you to utilize if you do those steps. So that's another benefit to that. All right, so let's just do a little quiz because we did talk about a lot for Google Classroom, just to check in. Since we can't use our A Notes tab, and I'll figure out why, and Ms. Vicki said I need to turn it on, so I need to go back on my settings. Let's just kind of do a little check-in just to make sure you got some stuff for Google Classroom. So are you able to utilize the reuse option in both your stream and your classwork section in your Google Classroom? Let me know yes or no in your chat box. Is that something that you're able to do, one of your shortcuts? Are you able to do that on Google Classroom? Use that reuse button. If you already created the information, submitted it, and assigned it to another class, are you able to reuse that announcement? Are you able to reuse that assignment without having to do the work again? Is that one of your wonderful features? Yes, yes, and yes. It is. It is, it is. Awesome. All right, are you able to create not only a PowerPoint assignment, are you able to do group assignments on your Google Classroom? And even just short answer, is that something that you can do on that platform? Everybody, yes, yes, yes. So all of those good nuggets, I recorded it, it'll be posted, but just remember you have all of those different type of shortcuts and you can run your grade book, which is what every state wants us to be able to do for our students. All right, so we're on the tail end of our time together. I want to definitely get into some interactive games, right? Because I know that's part of why you're here and what I do to engage my students. I use this concept called gamification. Has anybody heard of gamification before? Is it new to you? Is it, you know, something you've heard or kind of heard through the grapevine, as we would say in the South? Yes, 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 yes. Have you been exposed to it? Have you utilized it, or have maybe a company, or you as a company, as a business owner, have you used it as a tool with your associates or your staff? Melissa said she's new to it. Melissa, you'll love this. I have not. Okay, so it's a nice fancy term, but truly what it is you creating something that has a game type component to it. So it has that competitiveness. So I'll give an example that things that I did as a nurse leader for fall prevention. Instead of me just sitting and talking to the associates about fall prevention and all of our policies and procedures, I created like a detective game. Number one, I wanted to know if my associates knew how to go into a resident room and determine why they fail, or at least give me a good idea of what they can tell. So I actually created a crime scene. Yeah, I know, I'm a little CSI person. I created a makeshift crime scene, and we had all kind of distractors. Yes. And, you know, just like a typical nursing question, right? All of these possible right answers. And they had to go in, I broke them up into groups. They came up with a name for their group, and they had to go in, look at the scene, and we were all in full character. They had a detective. One of my nurses was a detective. The other person was the person who stumbled upon the incident, and they were able to give them some cues, but ultimately they had to figure out why this person fell. It gave them a competitive edge. Also, it's more engaging. And as we talked about what do you think happened, it's amazing how funny and hilarious people are when it comes to their thoughts about things. But it created a very engaging way for them to get concepts that I needed them to learn about fall prevention. And honestly, none of them got the right answer. This one resident that I recreated the incident for, he kept falling out of his bed because he kept reaching for his cookie jar. His wife would always move it because she had dementia off of the end table. So he would reach for it, and there you go, he was on the floor. So then I started to engage them on, okay, how do we prevent that fall? You thought it was the wheelchair, it was the shoes, it was the rug, but now we know it's more of a positional thing. It's more that there's a dynamic that both individuals, both residents have dementia. So just using like a game type idea, competitive idea in a learning process. And I do that in CNA school. I love it. And we were able to decrease falls significantly in our community because of it. So a key component of that is that you want them to solve problems, right? And that's what they're not the nurse, but we do want them to be good observers. We want them to be able to tell us what's happening so we can be able to respond appropriately and accurately. Gamification, actually, there's a lot of data. It improves engagement. It actually it increases retention in a business setting, and it increases productivity because the people are engaged. They're not sitting through this boring lecture all day. And hopefully you don't feel like this is a boring lecture. Try to keep you engaged as much as possible. So these are some free options that I love. And I actually will share some responses to what the students mentioned about even these simple things. Jeopardy Labs. I mentioned this on my call with Victoria. Love it, love it, love it, because there's already some Jeopardy games that's already created for you. You can actually put in CNA, and it'll actually pull it up for you in online. So I'm actually going to show you what I mean, because I am a visual learner also, and I want you to see what it looks like. So this is Jeopardy Labs. You can create it if you have the bandwidth, which I am a creator, so I love to do that. And I did create one that I'm going to send to you via email that you can use and edit as you free will, or you can find one. So let's say, you know what, I ain't got time to be creating no Jeopardy. So I just put in like CNA. I click, and guess what? You have so many options already here that somebody else has already done for you. I always recommend that you preview, look at them, see if it's what you want. It gives you the option to separate teams. So remember at the beginning, I told you I had 3 different classes and they all had a different personality. or different environment or different field or whatever you want to call it. One class, this was like their highlight. This is how I would get them to wake up in the morning, is doing Jeopardy. Every time I wanted them to make sure they're getting what we're talking about. Jeopardy got them very competitive. They're laughing, they're talking smack to each other. It's the best thing. So you can put them into teams. You want to, no teams, 3 teams. You can actually print it, download it, share it. Again, free. And then we would start. So at the very bottom, one of the features that I love is that as you ask them, hey, pick your topic and how much, and if they get it right at the very bottom, notice that you can put a plus or minus if they get those answers wrong. So those teams can see how they're doing. And it's pretty hilarious because they get pretty crunk about it. So we click it and it gives them an option. Response, some of them is, the response is the same thing. So what I would do is actually give them my feedback on that question and see if they're in the right ballpark, or if we can just use it as a way to discuss the topics that we're reviewing over, if that makes sense. And then you have your option on the very top to reveal the answer. What is no refunds? Which I don't think that would be a good question, but it gives you an example of what that flow of that looks like. Again, you can edit it, click on it, make it your own. It's a really good resource that that one group really needed. Games really got them up and awoke in the morning. Free for you. There's another thing that's on here that I really like about Jeopardy Labs is, let me see what we got. Yes, they're very competitive, and you would think Jeopardy wouldn't be the game, but it is. There's not one time that I've seen it. Actually came up in my survey a lot because I asked them, like, what was like 3 of your top favorite things that we did in the class, and Jeopardy was like one of those things. They loved it. I probably would never go on Jeopardy. I think those questions are too hard. But this is simple, and you can find preloaded CNA content, and you can edit them to make it what you want it to be. Also, they have bingo cards. You might think, well, we don't want to play bingo, but you actually could, and you can make it like a quiz type thing. So before they put, their X on there, they have to define it maybe, or they have to give you clarity on what they would do, So it's simple games that we probably would think, oh, that's not going to work in in this setting, but it works. It works, y'all. I promise you it works. And they love it. And it's just not me talking to them. It's not me talking to them at all. So I'm just going to click on it and just kind of show you how it rolls a little bit. You would actually send them this URL. They can use their phone. So it's another way to make sure they're paying attention to you and not, Facebook or something. And give them that URL. They can play from there. I'm going to actually click on it because I want you to see it live. We're going to generate that bingo. So it gives you examples like, what do you need to do to market? So again, let's say I wanted them to define, give me examples like, okay, my thing is in resident assistant CNA and the AL. Okay, tell me some components of what a CNA would do in an assisted living, because it is different, right? I love the assisted living. It is a different arena. So that student would have to tell me something in response before they can put the X on there. They click it, guess what? It highlights it. They have the ability to clear their boards. At the very bottom, I'm clicking on, let me get my little marker here so I can show you where I'm at, because it's kind of hidden down here. But right at the bottom here, you can actually print it. Let's say you're doing it in person, because hopefully, things will be over. You can do this in a classroom setting, still can use it, print it, create it, and then you can also clear it off. So let's say, somebody did get bingo, they answered those questions correctly, you can clear it off and do another game. So I really like this free option in a way that you can engage your students. Any thoughts about these 2 simple things that you could do? Any feedback on that? I got Ms. B, she's like, yeah, this is pretty good. Think it's something that you can use, you know, you don't have to recreate. Yeah, it is fun, right? I like bingo. I like bingo. You might can't give them anything virtually, but honestly, they get so excited just because they're competing. And that's what gamification in short is just adding a game to something that has a learning component to it. And again, it helps you lecture. And you can even start, you know, maybe if you want to be a little bit untraditional, maybe start your lecture from this start point. Maybe use it as a test your knowledge. What do you know about CNAs in assisted living? Do you know? You know, maybe use it as an icebreaker, you know, and then maybe come back and use it as a review. You know, oh, we lectured about it, we talked about it, and I'm going over all these different components, and then go back and see, oh, wow, you got it. You retain that information. So you can kind of use this a little bit different depending upon how you want to approach it. Yes, definitely. Yeah. And that's the way my brain works. I'm always trying to think, how can I make this, you know, little thing virtual, make it fun, simple, free, like I said, free, and we can connect to the students. Any ideas on a Quizlet? So I actually uploaded that on my CNA platform. Yes, I like it. I always try to make sure that I review any spelling errors. Vicki, for those that are preloaded, unless you're going to create it on your own, there's some really, really good ones, but there's times where I found that they had some spelling errors, and I just wanted to make sure that's good. You can do Quizlets. You can do it as an on-the-spot quiz because you can get on it live, you know, and you can project it on the screen, and you can use it as a Q&A. And you can also do teams. If you want to do it as a more competitive, you can say, like for Jeopardy, you know, based on the way I saw the students in the screen, I would divide them into group 1, group 2, or team 2, or team 3. And I would, you know, have to take notes, you know, points in a different way because that feature doesn't give us that like Jeopardy, but you can do it like that. And then you can kind of review some content in that way and make it a little bit more competitive. So that might be an option for you to do your Quizlets. Project it and just go through with your students that way and test their knowledge on that. Does that help, Vicki? I like Quizlets. I like Quizlet. A lot of students used it as a way to study for our class too. Really, really like it. Okay, perfect. You like that? Okay, awesome. I love to think outside the box as much as I can. You know, these things are simple, but hey, and they're there for you. So why not? Why not? So Jeopardy Labs is one of your options that you can use for free. You always have the option to, create it yourself, but it's already there. You can edit it. Another one that my classes really like is called Stump Your Peer. Have you ever heard of that game? Stump Your Peer. Have you played it in person? This is a game that I have not seen done virtually, but I did it virtually. Have you ever played it in the office? Nope. I actually was looking up some games, and I wanted to figure out, okay, what can I start off my class with today? Mainly for chapter 4. This is one of those games that chapter 4 is just a lot. Chapter 4 and 5, especially 5, I love 5 and 4 because we get into conditions. We talk about Alzheimer's and dementia. We're really getting to the meat of the challenges our residents may be facing. But I want to make sure that they understand the content. So for Stump Your Peer, what I did is I actually created a PowerPoint slide over all the chronic conditions. And what I mean by that, let me give you an example of that here. Nothing happened technically. We're still here. All right. So what I did is I created a PowerPoint slide that has the different chronic conditions that our residents may be faced with based on what our Hartman's book cover. If you want to add things, as nurses we do, you know, we understand what's valuable, then we may definitely want to do that. But, you know, we may talk about a TIA in that curriculum. I'm trying to think of, we definitely do talk about Parkinson's disease. in different systems like that. Or you can actually do one just based on the systems, actually, because it's broken up that way, like musculoskeletal, for instance, your nervous system. And I would just actually create, I'm gonna just play with this a little bit. Example. And I would actually have a slide already done. I couldn't pull it up today, that's why I don't have it as an example, but I just want to kind of show you what I mean by that. So I think the book goes over more than, from visual right, more than 10 conditions in chapter 4. So I would actually have it laid out on that PowerPoint slide. So what I ask the students to do is take a moment, write 3 questions per condition. 3 questions, pick a condition, I apologize, pick a condition, let's say it's example 1. And I want you to write 3 questions that you're gonna be able to ask your classmate. And every one of them pick them. It doesn't matter if they all pick the same one, that would rarely happen. But I want them to pick musculoskeletal. I'm gonna ask 3 questions based on what we've learned. The skin, you know, our nervous system, so on and so on and so on. Once they've written those questions down, they have to take turns asking their classmate the question. Let's say it's me and Ms. Vicky. Ms. Vicky, what are 2 examples that you should observe and report to a nurse when a resident has a heart attack, you know, or cardiac arrest? And then Ms. Vicky would answer that. If Ms. Vicky answered that correctly, then I would lose that card. So I only have 3. And once I'm out of those 3 cards, or those 3 questions, then I'm out of the game. So the goal of the game is that you have the most questions at the end of the game that you've gotten correct. This is something that is so simple, y'all, but they loved it because they got to test each other, quiz each other. And it's one of the days, actually, my husband walked in and he was like, wow, y'all having a lot of fun. Because we were laughing so hard at, you know, the responses, or people like, well, I don't know. And so then what I would add is a lifeline. I said, okay, if you don't know, then I'll allow you to get a lifeline. Ask one of your classmates what you can, you know, if they can help you understand, you know, what that question is asking, give you a clue or you know, a hint. Or whatever. So we spent literally an hour, I think an hour and a half, doing Stump Your Peer, just because of the laughter and also them quizzing each other, helping each other, supporting each other. And it allowed me to see, okay, did they understand all of these chronic conditions that we reviewed in chapter 4? And they test each other. And what I actually had them do for this one, I had them do a quiz right after that, over that, to see how well they retained the information that they just reviewed. And none of my students failed that test. So that's an option. And I'll actually email you my template because I couldn't add it to this PowerPoint for whatever reason, that you can edit it and just, you know, add your own. But it's called Stump Your Peer, and the intent is to see if you can get your other student, your other classmate, to be stumped on that question, like, oh God, I don't know what that is, because you want to end up with the most questions at the end. But it's a good way to quiz them. Any questions about that exercise? Something you think you can use? Definitely for free, because you just would kind of put your slides on there, put your topics on there, and have them create the questions. Another thing you can do with questions is, even when they first log into the virtual classroom, is have them on your chat box put a question about something that they read and they want more clarity on. So that way you kind of start off your lecture with answering those questions. And then maybe you can do a quiz, like something like Stump Your Peer, based on the responses and the knowledge that you gave them about those same questions. So it also sees, are you paying attention to what your classmate is saying and what I responded to? Are you retaining that information? And it makes it, again, competitive for your students, so that they can, you know, have fun while learning that information. Any thoughts about that, Stump Your Peer? Think it's something that you can use and implement? Pretty simple, right? Ted Ed, have you heard of that as an instructor? Yes, yes, yes. Yes, it is a great idea. It's easy and it's free, Ms. Vicky. Free, free, free. Never heard of TED Ed. Really? Y'all will love this. I love TED Ed. Okay, I can't wait to show you this. Uh-oh. This is what this video is about Experience 12 Minutes, and it's really heartbreaking because they give an example of they're videoing a senior who's in her home with her son, and you can see that she's having challenges, but the family members don't understand it. They just think that she's doing it, which, you know, as nurses, we kind of know how that is. We're in that world, we understand it, but for their loved one, it's different. They're not used to their loved one experiencing those changes. So this is a really good video. So what I did is I created a lecture, or a lesson rather, around that. And you can search it. So I'll show you what you can do. You can create the lesson here, and I'll show you that in a few minutes, but I just want to show you what I did. And I put it based on your chapter 5, Hartman's. You will dive into confusion, dementia, and Alzheimer's. So this was actually, don't log in until you watch this video. So I gave them from, let's say, 9 to 10. They had to watch the video, and then they had to complete a discussion. And I actually had them do it on Google Classroom and not this platform. But you can point them to this platform if you wanted to. And I put a question, like, what is the nurse aid's role when assisting a resident with Alzheimer's disease, with challenges? Always ask them, what challenges do you think you're going to face? Because this is not a cookie cutter job. Like, no job in healthcare is just pretty straightforward. So based on what you're seeing in this video, what challenges are you thinking you're going to face with that resident that may have a diagnosis of dementia? And what did you learn new? I always ask that question, and I always encourage you to do that, because it shows you that you are given new knowledge. It's validating that you are giving them new information that they didn't know. And if you don't ask the question, then you don't know that you did, even by just connecting them, pointing them to a resource. And then now that you have a new understanding of the impact of Alzheimer's, how will you interact and respond to a resident with Alzheimer's? So that's the meat of where I'm trying to get them to be with this resource. I want them to look at that video. And again, this is how you can even create a case study. Like that resident in the video, I can give her a name and put a story around her. You know, I started off with Miss Mary, she's very excited. She's you know, is a jokester. She's enjoying the aging process, but also has a funny way of talking about it. So my first part of my case study would be, hey, how would you connect with her? She's your new resident that has walked into your community. What would you know, how would you talk and communicate to her? Now her Alzheimer's has progressed. So I'm kind of progressing into my case study thing, but this is where Miss Mary is. So when they look at the video, Miss Mary is, you know, she's confused, she's frustrated, you know, okay, now things have changed. And then you begin to build and ask questions about the same character that you introduced them to at the beginning of your lecture or your time in the class, but now you're adding more components to that person. So you don't necessarily create 10 case studies. You can create one, but you can add different components to that person's lifespan with the student. And the videos just help them get it before they get to clinicals, right? It gives them a visual. And this is one where some students were in tears because it is that type of video. It really tugs at your heart. And actually what they did is have the loved ones walk through that experience. And you can see how frustrated they get. So this is a free resource to you. I actually have 2 lessons on here that I'll be posting on my Facebook page that you can definitely utilize also. Any questions about TED Ed? Do you think this would be a useful resource for you to utilize in your class? I'm always looking for, you may not want to go and create something here, but I'm always building stuff and it's free and would love to pass that information on you. Yes, useful. And maybe just finding that video and embedded it in your Google Classroom, put it on your stream, because now we know they can comment, right? Kind of like a message board. And you can post this video. They won't see these questions, but you can give them questions and have them do a discussion around that. Very, very good free resource. I also created one for chronic conditions, chapter 4. This young lady does a very good job of talking about the everyday life of having chronic conditions, and it just kind of opens your nurse aide eyes up a little bit on that. Awesome, awesome. So I definitely want to be mindful of your time. We've spent, I don't know if y'all looked at the time, we've spent like 2 hours talking about interacting with your nursing assistants. I hope that you found the information valuable, and I definitely will build upon it. So I do recommend, I will send you a link to connect with me on the next session, because I want to dive in. I talked about the case studies on this call, but I really, really want you to have a template that you can use. So I'm actually going to give you a template in the email for the next week's call, and you'll have this character already kind of dived out for you, and you can just take stuff out and add stuff in. But I wanted to kind of show you some components of what that may look like. Yes, Melissa.
Hi, Laura. Sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to tell you, I found that this chat that you've had in class was very informative.
Oh, good.
And I look forward to the next class. The only question that I have is, does anyone, or you as well, know anyone that can help a person myself that is starting up with starting this business, because I'm having a hard time with the state requirements as far as the curriculum and the business plan and all of the meat and potatoes to get started. So
I already got you a hookup. Her name is Victoria Randall. I already got you a hookup. So I'm going to email you and her an email. I'm going to give you a link to her website. It's called The Secret Cocktail. You don't have to remember, because I'll give it to you in the email. Everything you need, Melissa, is in that resource. And she's a wealth of knowledge. Every person that she's worked with has gotten their school approved.
Okay, well, that sounds wonderful. Thank you. I think I found her information on YouTube.
Yes.
And I watched a couple of her videos,
Yes.
but I haven't officially reached out to her. So now that I'm hearing it from you, I think I'll make that step.
Yes, I'll put you in her an email. Yes, yes. She's
Thank you.
I completed my business plan course for my CNA school with her. It was so good, so good, very straightforward, simple. I was able to follow got that done at the beginning of the year. And I'm actually finishing up her mentor. She has a mentorship program for those who want to start their own school also.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Yes, I'm glad you asked. Ms. V, how you doing? We've been on this call for real, this training. I tried to put it into an hour time frame, but I didn't realize it was going to go this long. I apologize if I'm overdoing it with your time. But I definitely want to share this information. Here is some feedback that the students gave for some of these activities. I did survey them because I wanted to really get information. So those group activities are really good to incorporate in your classroom environment. So rather, if you're doing a refresher, Melissa, then eventually venturing out into having your own school, and the same for you, Ms. B. Those group activities really, they raved about that. So even if it's just simple as putting them in groups and having them discuss something, it doesn't have to be complicated. I try to make it simple myself, but this is their words about, they got to know each other. They got to share ideas. I did a group activity for the religious one because I wanted them to dive into that a little bit more. And then they were able to work and understand each other. So it's just not them looking at each other virtually. They were able to actually talk and make those connections. And at the end, they were actually, trying to get together and celebrate our class last week. And then the games, I had some bigger comments, so I couldn't put all of them in here, but some of the statements about those games and exercises that it really helped. So a lot of times I use the games that I gave you as a review. So instead of us going from one question at a time, we did it in a review setting and made it fun. So you can see that they liked it. The environment had them and didn't have them more focused. I think some of us said we felt like they might get distracted. So this kind of gets that focus back on there. They really like those reviews and group discussion PowerPoint presentations because they were able to work together as a team and study together. And then I told you we did a lot of laughing because, you know, things would just happen. It's virtual learning. So it's not as, you know, controlled. It's controlled, but then there's components that, like kids screaming in the midst of the video, that we just had to go with and come back as a class. And then I kind of talked about some components of case study, and I will actually go into that more and start off our next session with that, because I really want to give you a template you can use. That way you have it whenever you're ready to go and utilize it, you can do that. And I'll talk to you about how to build that out and just use one. Maybe if you want to be happy about it, get 3 characters, but I could just build one case study throughout that book, our Hartman's book, just on one character. And I can talk to you, next week we'll talk about how we want to connect it to objectives, because we always want to satisfy what our state wants, and then how we connect it to that student understanding their role as a CNA and what problem are they identifying. How do we check knowledge with a case study to make sure that they understand, okay, this is what, you know, a stroke look like. This is what fast needs to be, you know, this is why I know that the resident had this. So I'll actually give you some examples of that and actually give you a template that you can use for free. But that's it, ladies. Thank you for sticking with me. I'm excited that you did. Hopefully this was useful. What do you think? Did you like it? Did you enjoy it? Did you learn something new?
I did. Yep.
Yes. Some stuff you can use for free.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm always available if you have a question, like if there's something comes up, you're like, oh, I don't know. Then I love to think, you know, to kind of think creatively. You know, maybe it's something that's a board game. We can figure out how to put it on a PowerPoint or something. I love doing stuff like that. I also have an online platform called My Online CNA Platform. So for schools that are wanting to go virtually and you're like, you know what, I need to relearn this information, I actually have a platform that I've pre-recorded lectures. I have some of these engaging activities already on there, and you would just pay for your student to have access. So all you would focus on is connecting with them, and I take care of the lecture part. And I just launched this resource a few weeks ago, actually, and updated the website. So I do encourage you to check it out, give me your feedback. But it's a great resource for people who are just trying to get online tomorrow, you know, and they're trying to still figure out how to do that. I actually do offer full Google Classroom upload. So if you don't want to get into creating your own quizzes and all of that, that's something I can actually help you out with too. So do you have any questions for me? I've enjoyed all of y'all today. Thank you for spending your Monday and starting off your week with me. Any questions, any reflections, last words, as they would say? Any thoughts?
Questions, but it's really, really, really great information. Like I told you, I'm in the midst of this huge application for higher learning.
Yes.
And I don't really want to bother with the online content.
I got you.
So if and when I find out, you know, whether Google Classroom is accepted, you would definitely be somebody I would, you know, I would utilize.
Yes,
to dump that content. Yeah.
Definitely utilize me. And if it is a different platform, let me know.
Okay.
You know, if it's something that I can take off your hands, I would love to be able to do that for you so you can focus on your students.
Okay.
Definitely.
Great.
And email me that name, because I know we had a few things I wanted to also research with you.
Okay.
I'm going to email y'all the resources that I mentioned, and just let me know the requirement that they were, I forgot the name already. That's why I need an email. So I can look it up and see if Google Classroom would be one of those options. And it was something else, I'll look in the chat what that is. But Melissa, I'll connect you with Victoria also. So that's my homework for myself. Is there anything else I can support y'all with? Any other questions that I can possibly answer? Did you feel like this was informative, helpful?
Very informative, very helpful.
Awesome.
Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
You're welcome. You're so welcome.